of the room, just a quick show of hands. Have you heard of 75 hard at all? I'm just trying to gauge the room. So no 75 hard, no 70. So 1, 2, 3, no 75. Perfect. So no matter if I say it perfectly correct or perfectly wrong, you won't know the difference. The program's called 75 Hard. Iron Man for your brain. A tool that can drastically change you forever and you can come back to if you ever find yourself off course again in life. It is a secular program that I didn't invent. A gentleman, for the note takers, I did put some note cards and pens out there. Andy Frisella developed this. Andy Frisella works in the personal development, kind of the fitness guru kind of sector. And this was a spin-off of what he does professionally. And I kind of just took it at face value, and the spiritual connection that I made with our Father God was real because of I think enhanced through going through 75 Hard. And I think that's what Dodd wanted me to touch on. For any of you who jotted down Andy Frisella, and you're going to go home or you're going to get in your car and you type it into your iPhone, language warning. Okay? He loves the F word and every other kind of word like that. So if you're someone that's deeply bothered by all of that, please stay away from Andy Frisella. If you can kind of take that for face value and just accept that's what kind of Andy Frisella is, and acknowledge that he has a lot of good things to say in between some of those words we might not love, then Andy Frisella is for you and Andy Frisella is for me. Okay? I don't know that he's a Christian person, but I've heard him reference God. I listen to his podcast. He brings strongly devout, faith-based people in to speak on his podcast that have utilized 75 Hard. So I think, like so many other things in this world, all of it can be good if you want it to be good for you, right? So that's what I've utilized in 75 Hard. Derek Furry's son, brother, husband, father, tree guy, and an infant in being a follower of Christ. I was not always the church going Sunday morning kind of dad that wanted to do well and rocking the bass guitar. I used to play the bass guitar where they had a cross stand, but it was flipped the other way. And, so I've done all of that. I've been up for 3 and 4 days at a time doing goofy stuff to myself. I drank enough in my teens and 20s to last a lifetime. So now I live in sobriety, knowing that I did all of that. I turned every rock and I looked behind every tree at what that all had to offer. And it always paled in comparison to what I found in 75 Hard, right? So I am all of those things. It's a part of who I am, and I take absolutely no shame in it, okay? So I work in sales for a living. I'm in the tree care industry. And in sales, I love what I do. But I spend a lot of time, I was chatting with Dan, listening to other people and just kind of accepting them for who they are. And I seldom get to respond the way I'm thinking because it's just not the space for that. This is going to be the space for that. So if anything I say to you this morning rattles some cages or stirs the pot a little bit, that'll actually do more to tell me I'm doing this correctly than by tiptoeing around feelings. Okay, so I'm not here to lose any friends. We're all brothers here. But I'm going to give you the real unfiltered version of Derek Furry this morning. Okay? I think there's just not a lot of people willing, including myself, to have the courage to really say the truth. And that's why Republicans always lose. And that's why Mastriano is going to get slaughtered, right? Because he's perpetuating the truth, and it's just not electable. That's my opinion, and this isn't a political talk, and I'm just trying to frame out that I think we spend too much time skirting around what we know to be right. The difference between boys and girls, that's on the chopping block these days. I definitely think that it's really clear and well written that there are definite differences, and you are who you are, and you're not who you're not. 75 Hard is not a fitness challenge. 75 Hard is not an Instagram challenge. 75 Hard is not a financial program. But doing it in the full version, you'll probably lose weight. 75 Hard is not an AA program. But if you do it correctly, you won't have one drop of alcohol. I'm more than 15 months probably without a drop of alcohol. That scared me at one time. And people think when you talk about alcohol, it's this weird subject, right? So that if I'm an advocate of sobriety, that the assumption must be like, oh my gosh, he was a raging alcoholic. I think alcohol is the most destructive form of tolerable for sale right down the street, destroying American families because it's so accepted. When I was blowing cocaine off the toilet seat of a dive bar, I was at least hiding that. I was shameful. I knew it was terrible. It wasn't good. I was doing it, but I at least hid it. Alcohol is for sale. $9. You can get a can of beer at the World Series game tomorrow night, and nobody's going to say anything about it. All right? But if there was a drug dealer around the corner and said, hey, I want $100 worth of cocaine to chop up on the back of the bleacher in front of me, you're going to get some attention, right? I don't think that there's necessarily a great big difference. I think they're equally terrible. And I'm super, super thankful and proud of my sobriety. I work on it every day. But just talking about it in the way I do, I think societally makes some connotations. I'm in business. I represent my company, and so I go to networking events in the evenings and through the daytime sometimes. It's not uncommon for that to be hosted by somebody having adult beverages out there. And I felt apprehensive. I wanted to blend in and just be the next guy holding a Bud Light, right? Not falling over drunk, right? Definitely not, but one or two. Hey, we're networking. And I was nervous about that. I love the Raiders. I love them so much that Sundays are one of my favorite days to go home and watch the Raiders, and I love to drink while I did that. I stopped doing that. I was actually concerned when I was considering whether or not to do 75 Hard about not being able to drink beer. Pabst Blue Ribbon was my favorite, while watching the now Las Vegas Raiders. My own dad, I love him to death. What if you shoot a big buck? Because typically I loved going hunting with my family. And he said, what if you shoot a big buck? We're not going to have a beer together? Because we always did, right? I shot a big bear one time. We drank a lot, whiskey, beer, all of it. It was great. We celebrated that. And then I did shoot a big buck. And I didn't drink. And the Raiders came on that year. And though they tempted me, because of the way the outcome of the game, Bill, I didn't drink. So I joke and I kid, and I promise to make the connections back to spirituality, and I recognize that we're at Prince Street Church. And so Mark 12:31, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these. And you'll notice I emphasize, TJ, 2 words in there. Could you read that to the group?
As thyself.
Right, as thyself. Tell me right now, and I mean to offend no one. If you are deeply overweight, drinking Coca-Colas, eating cruddy food, can you really say you love yourself? You know it's wrong. I'm intentionally looking at no one, right? Because I don't want to someone in here think I'm speaking at them, right? I'm speaking with you all. But I think a lot of times we read that verse. I didn't stumble upon it. It's one of the common ones that you hear. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I think too often, more than we should, we think about the neighbor part of that scripture. Right? And if you looked up, if you type in your Google search, like, what does the Bible say about your neighbors? This would be one of the things that probably pop up with 30 other verses. And today I'd like to talk about as thyself. A cliche I want to share with you all, and one I started to reflect on a lot when I was considering doing this, is the old cliche. Anybody who's father or has a family, you might be familiar with the cliche like, oh, I'd take a bullet for my kids, or some other very close analogy with that, like, oh, I'd jump in front of a train for my wife. So would I. I would do all of those things. But thank God, Bill, those are very low percentage scenarios. right? You're a very experienced person. You've done more trips around the sun than me, but you're a young man. And I would venture to guess that nobody's ever pressed a gun to your forehead and say, Bill, it's your kids or you. Right? It's never happened. But we're familiar with the cliche, and I think everybody that uses that cliche is just trying to underscore how much they love their family. So I can appreciate that. So you would die for your family. Great. Good. You love your family. You would die for your family. How would you live for your family? Because how you would die for your family, Bill just told me, it's a low percentage scenario, right? It's not very likely you're going to run out to Turkey Hill and someone's going to say, TJ, it's you or the kids, man. That's probably not going to happen. But the sun came up today, and you are going to live for your family. However you're living for your family, right? What example are you putting out there? And I questioned, even when I was playing guitar every Sunday in here and everything else, I questioned when I had kids. And it upsets me that it wasn't right away when it was Hank. It actually took, when Cash was coming along, for me to really wake the heck up, man. And recognize, how am I living for my family? Every day, Finky. Every day I get a new shot. The slate's wiped clean every single day. You wake up, there's millions of neurons flying off in your brain, and we're most alive as soon as we wake up. We just got recharged, right? What are you going to do with that blessing, right? Another cliche, God gave me another day. Well, great. What are you doing with it? We're going to look at a program that talks about that. So often we say we love thyself, but you can't love yourself and not possess, among many other things. These are just what I ripped off of Andy Frisella. Confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, self-belief, fortitude, greediness. All of this and a whole lot more comes out of engaging in a program like 75 Hard. I believe among our actual national debt, one of the deepest, broadest, biggest societal national debts we have is grit. Particularly among my generation. You can be anything you want. Well, yeah, you can be anything you want. I definitely believe in luck, and I believe people that bust their butt the most happen to have the most luck. Right? So, my generation especially, if you go get the piece of paper, and your parents for Christmas that year will frame it and you'll put it on the wall, you'll be really proud of that piece of paper. Another word for it is college degree. And that's going to somehow get you something. Baloney. I do a lot of hiring at Bartlett Tree Experts. And a lot of our job seekers today are wondering, how do I move up the ladder? Here's a rake. Run this to an exceptionally high level. Be the best raker. Then you'll be the best guy with the chainsaw. Be the best one. I think a lot of you can understand the analogy I'm making, but I think in a big way, we've been shortchanging ourselves, accepting mediocrity way too often. We have a reverse aspect on failure. The worst thing you can school, earmuffs, Dan. The worst thing in school you can do is get an F. Right? I'm joking and I'm kidding, but I absolutely think the modern school program in education is completely terrible, and that's not Dan's fault. But the worst thing you can do, TJ, is get an F, right?
I got plenty of them.
Me too. So, right, and you and I know in life, what's the best thing you can do, Finky? You can take a failure and learn from it, right?
Yep.
So we're teaching our kids, we're breeding out of them mentally between your ears. We're stealing from them. And I think of it that way, that literally, that we're stealing from them the blessing that is failure, used to catapult you into some version of success later, right? The best things I did as a tree guy was fail. Now, I'm not suggesting that I put a chainsaw into my leg, right? But I take customer service really seriously, and I do that because of the times when Mrs. Jones let me know I didn't quite hit the mark. I failed Mrs. Jones. I don't want to fail Mrs. Jones. Right? So I use failure. And we don't do enough to encourage kids to fail and use it. Right? I'm not suggesting to have all the answers, but we're raising chickens. Soon we'll have pigs, and soon we'll have cows. And Dan, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, man. But my kids are getting to experience all of that too. The failures, how we make it work. How do you get an egg, right? So we want our kids to experience failure. And how do you use that? 75 Hard has a really blunt, not electable opinion about failure. And we're going to look in a minute about what it means to go through the 75 Hard program. But one of the things you have to do is a 45-minute workout. Not 44 minutes. Not even 44 minutes and 50 seconds. It's 45 minutes. And so often we have loan forgiveness. We have, your late tax application. You didn't pay your bill, but here's a small fee you have to pay. No, you absolutely failed. If you did a 44-minute workout and you wanted to do a 45-minute workout, all 44 minutes failed because of one you didn't do. I think we spend too much time trying to give ourselves excuses for our shortcomings, and not just say, hey, you know what, I effed up on that one. Thank goodness tomorrow's coming and I can redo it, right? But being real about that you didn't hit the mark. So we're going to look at the 75 Hard program, and this is where, if I had attorneys, I don't have attorneys, right? But this is where I have to say, you should consult your physician or other healthcare professional before starting the 75 Hard program or other fitness programs to determine if it is right for your needs. Do not start 75 Hard if your physician or healthcare provider advises against that. Every single person in this room can do 75 Hard. I'm not a doctor. I have no professional way of backing that up. That's in there because you got to say that, right? So what is 75 Hard? You're probably wondering now, you've heard me rambling for 20 minutes about all the things I feel passionately about. 75 Hard is taking on tasks that you must do every single day to completion for 75 days consecutively. And you can fail. If you don't hit those marks every day, tomorrow comes and you can start at day one again. All right? For 75 days consecutively, I did 2 45-minute workouts. They must be 2 distinct workouts. You can't do a 90-minute workout, Finky. Wouldn't count. It's got to be 2 separate 45-minute sessions. One of them must be outdoors, regardless of the weather, TJ. Every single day, I did 2 45-minute workouts, one of them outdoors. I had to follow a diet. For me, my diet was just not eating the stuff you know is junk. You can look something right kind of dead on, and you're like, is this junk or is it not? I mean, you don't have to be a dietitian to recognize that sweet potato pie ain't good for you, right? I stopped eating on the road, Dan. I do a lot of driving for my job and pulling into McDonald's, Sheets, and Subways. It's
convenient.
I cut it out. It's convenient. It's also expensive, Dave Ramsey.
It is.
And so I cut that out. I also would not eat anything after 7 p.m. No alcohol or cheat meals, right? Like we do that to ourselves. We're like, hey, I did 6 days great, and it's the day 7. I'm gonna have a little chocolate cake. Why? You just did 6 days. You're selling yourself out. You think you need a cheat meal? There is no cheat meals. You think about that, our spirituality. It isn't like, hey, 7 days a week I walk with Jesus, and today I'm going to do all this other goofy stuff because it's a cheat day. No. Jesus has no cheat days. 75 Hard has no cheat days. Every single day you have to drink 1 full gallon of water, U.S. gallon, and that can sound intimidating, and I will say that you have to make it the whole day. Or you'll be in the bathroom all night. But if you break that down to a quart by 7 a.m., a quart by lunch, a quart by dinner, a quart in the evening, it's really not that big a deal. Most people are walking around dehydrated. Most of you in this room right now are dehydrated, except for that guy. He's just slugging the water. He knew to do that. I made him thirsty. Here's the best one. Best one. One of my favorites. Read 10 pages of a book every day. Dan's not with Shippensburg area school district anymore, but I achieved getting a BS diploma that I mostly cheated my way through high school to get, having read maybe 2 or 3 books cover to cover in 12 grades. The rest of it, I bullcrapped my way through. I cheated off of Sally and Luke and Billy, and I got that high school diploma. A lot of what this isn't the literal, I did 2 45-minute workouts. It's the momentum you create and good feeling and stamina you build up that carries you throughout the day, that multiplies. Reading 10 pages of a book every single day. I've been doing 75 hard, either fully or in part, and we'll talk about that, for about 15 months, and have read, I brought just a small piece of, a small little bit of the library I have built, tapping into that it opens the door. I would say reading books was something I found most transformative, because for 250 pages, I get to steal the good ideas, in this case of Dale Carnegie, right? Awesome. For 300 pages, I got to, this person has a PhD in whatever she does, and she writes books about grit. And so it multiplied. The doing the 75 hard created momentum. You either have momentum or no momentum, right? So 75 hard is all about getting that ball rolling. And the amazing thing is all of the other dominoes that are struck, the waterfall of activity that comes from engaging in this every single day. Now, you got to be disciplined to do that. At first, I looked at it, I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to get that done every day? I've got to be responsible for my crew, for my clients, for my family. I have all these things I got to be responsible for, and it can be easy to become a spinning around, chasing your tail people pleaser. I think it's easy to do that. And we justify that, right, TJ? We say, like, hey, I'm doing it for my family. I wish I could, man. I can't make it because I'm baloney. I found that when I got over that hurdle that I was providing myself, that I can't do all of that because I got to be there for my kids. You actually have to be a little selfish to get that done every day. A 45-minute workout while your wife's dealing with the kids. I didn't go over really, really well when I first told Jenna about that. Right? So what did I do? Dad, I get up at 4 a.m. Everybody's asleep. I can go outside and do a workout, any weather, outside. So I plan my day to build in the one of 2 45-minute workouts. Take a progress picture every single day. For guys, this is going to be, and this is not for anybody else to see in the world, but you should probably have your shirt off, maybe some running shorts on, but you want to see a high percentage of your body. This is just for you. This is never to show anybody. But if you did that every single day for 75 days, whilst doing all of this, the changes are undeniable. Okay? I think God gives us a body, and it's up to us to take care of it. You don't want to be the richest guy in the graveyard, right? So it's up to you to take care of the gift He gave you. I mentioned to you that I'm kind of an infant in following Christ, and I talked about how Jenna and I, very early on in our relationship, super early on in our relationship, coming to church was something we decided we wanted to do together, and so we were doing that together for a while, and we were like, hey, I think it started to get serious, and the lights are going off in my head. I'm picturing the whole bowing down thing. It was starting to come together that she's going to be the girl for me. And so as we started having conversations that were more and more serious, we found out that I had really different opinions about finance. She had really different opinions about finance. And God spoke to me. I don't know your name, brother? David. David spoke to me. The timing, I cannot ignore, David. We were literally having a conversation. It was like a weeknight. It was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Just kind of like a nothing special kind of work day of the week. And that evening, my wife and I were talking about finance, and I didn't let it fester, and I kind of nipped it in the bud, but one of the moments where you said to yourself, like, oh, if I keep pressing here, I could ruin the evening, or I could just back off. And you're just like, oh, we think differently. Literally, Dan, that next Sunday, God spoke through you to us, or whoever you had at the front of the room, and they talked about Financial Peace University. And my wife and I were like, up there, you guys know where we sit. We're like elbowing each other. We're like, hey, this is it. I'm not like the guy that, like, you walk through the woods and you have the cliche picture of like the burning bush and all of that. I think God speaks to us through the people around us in the scenarios. I can't deny that absolutely, you can't tell me it wasn't divine. I refuse to believe that. We had the conversation. We recognized we had differences of opinion on finance, and we come in on that, where we come in, where we sit. And that week, they talked about Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey. I refuse anybody to tell me that, all of the like skeptics and all of that, baloney. Baloney, man. I refuse to believe it. We did Financial Peace University and absolutely changed our lives forever. Changed the lives of my grandkids. For those of you who don't know, my kids now are 3 and 1. And because of what we learned at Financial Peace University, I believe if we're eventually blessed with grandkids, the actions we're taking today, the things I don't buy, are going to multiply and have an impact on my grandkids. I could never, Dan, thank you enough for being the person that you are and doing what you do, and hosting that Financial Peace University. You've done it other times. But the one that he posted that week, or he shared about it, put in the announcements that week, was for us. It was probably, other than that like little conscience, which I think is the voice of God a lot of times, when I was doing goofy stuff, I always knew that it was goofy stuff. Right? I never questioned when I was about to blow a line of cocaine whether or not it was good for me, but I did it anyway. Right? The voice inside me said, this isn't right, and I just did it. Right? That was the spiritual awakening, I think, that I needed at that time. I say that to preface another series of events I want to share with you. This is the house my wife and I recently sold. It did not look like this when we bought it. And she's a lot of things, I'm a lot of things. And if I can take credit for anything, I'm a little more visionary than she is. And I was able to picture this a little bit. She took me up on my crazy idea to buy my late grandfather's decrepit house at the time. I had to remodel the bathroom. She would not move in until the bathroom was gutted and remodeled so she could come in and be a lady and feel clean. But fast forward five years, and we multiplied our investment by 3, and we're able to buy a property with 11 acres. I would have never done that if I didn't have the equity that we put into it. So, COVID-19, March 2020, and look, I'm somewhere between. I don't think that they're shooting microchips into our arms. I'm not that guy. And I also wasn't the guy driving around by myself in my own vehicle with 3 masks and rubber gloves on. Okay, I'm somewhere between there, right? I believe enough that COVID-19 is real, and I make no light of that for the I'm not attempting to, for anybody whose life was affected in a big way or a small way, whatever way, we were all affected by COVID-19. And so that started a lot of like people like wanting to like tell you, hey, this is what you should do. Well, I'm sorry. I struggle to listen to you tell me what to do when I see your shopping cart full of junk food and Coca-Cola, and then you hop on Facebook and tell me what I should do to be healthy. Get out of here. I'm not buying it. Not going there. I'm not getting in that lane with you. No, I absolutely do think it was politicized, but I don't think the Democrats invented it to take over the 2020 election and run Trump out of office. I do think CNN had a death toll ticker that was up while Trump was in office, and they took it down after he wasn't. Showing my cards here a little bit. Right? Help. COVID-19, people thinking about health. I bring all of that up and I joke a little bit, but my wife and I kind of took that seriously, and we weren't like hiding from the world. I went and got my shot. I went and got the booster. I'm not getting whatever they're up to, 5 or 6, 7 boosters. Okay, I stopped. I quit the boosters. But I got the initial shot. I thought it would be helpful. And I don't think, to this day, I don't think they put microchips in me so that they can track me and my family around and all that other goofy stuff. But it got my wife and I thinking about what are we putting into our bodies. And again, things multiply. We were already walking through the grocery store a little differently from Financial Peace University. This manipulated how we're walking through the grocery store, either literally or figuratively through life. And we're like, hey, what are we doing? Right? So that I mentioned that. So, you know, everything kind of multiplies. Momentum or no momentum. New Year's Eve 2020, COVID-19 is 10 months old or however old at that time. And we hosted just a little gathering. It wasn't like my New Year's Eve parties where we were like swinging off the chandeliers. This was like, you know, you shrimp and, you know, you do all that. And I definitely was not fit to drive, at least. But I had been way drunker before. I had been way higher on every other goofy thing I've ever put in my body. But God spoke to me on New Year's Eve 2020. It's 11:30 and, you know, my parents had gone home, you know, a while ago at that point. Hank was around. My wife was pregnant with Cash. My wife had gone to sleep, and I was just kind of up, and I was drinking. Like I said, I wasn't falling over drunk, but I shouldn't be able to drive. And I felt the responsibility of me, like, where God was, I again feel like it was divine. It was like, what if something happened right now? In that minute, like 11:31, December 31st, middle of the night. If something happened to my 9-month pregnant wife or 1.5-year-old son, I can't drive her to the hospital right now. I wasn't that drunk. I had like 8 beers. 8 beers is a lot to some people, but at one time in my life, 8 beers was like a warm-up, right? But something connected with me that like, hey, you probably shouldn't be this way. And I feel so terrible that I don't know why that didn't happen. I'm frustrated that it took my second kid for me to have that moment, right? I was equally unprepared for all of the potential moments that could have happened while she was carrying Hank. I had 8 beers lots of times. And I wasn't ready. That later on, early in 2020, my manager, I bring this book. This is one of my favorite books. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's almost a century old. You probably have heard of it. He wrote a lot of books. But my local manager bought that and threw it on my desk. He was either telling me, hey, you're a little bit of an a-hole, or this book helped me, and I want it to help you, right? But that was this copy. You can hold it, Dan. That copy of the book, that was the first book as an adult outside a high school or college setting that was like my book. Right? At the time, like, I didn't have books, DJ. I have rifles I like to go deer hunting. I had a truck in the driveway. I had other things I liked to buy. Books were never something I enjoyed buying or using. That was my first book that I can say, like, the library that I've built now. That was the first one. So again, COVID-19, we're thinking about health. New Year's Eve, I'm kind of not that drunk, but I self-recognize, thank goodness, that I'm not prepared. I've removed myself from being able to respond to a situation I can't foresee. Right? Dale Carnegie book. And I met John Schriever. Nobody knows in this room John Schriever. He's from Fulton County. Our businesses overlapped, and he runs Sidling Hill Financial. Again, I think about finances, and so when I'm at the networking mixer, I talk to that guy. And he introduced me to 75 Hard and absolutely changed my life. He had first said, like, hey, man, I think this would be good for you. And I looked at 75 Hard, that same little shot I just showed you, and I'm looking at all these things, and that's where I'm like, hey, I can't, like, watch a Raiders football game and not drink. Wait, this isn't for me. Working out, I wrestled the whole way through school, and for the 10, 12 years that I was out of school, really had no footprint in working out. My job was physical, at least while I was still climbing trees. But then when I got into kind of the business side of the tree care industry, I started growing in the wrong way. I'm doing a lot of running my gums and not climbing up trees, running chainsaws. So working out was something I'm like, man, I'm not into working out. I don't like running. At the time, I don't even know that I owned a pair of running shoes. It wasn't something I did. I had cowboy boots, Dodd, but didn't have running shoes, right? So, and then in this house, thank goodness, this is where I did 75 hard, running goofy laps, 4 in the morning. Picture it, David, 4 in the morning, spitting rain, 40 degrees, and I'm out there wearing a 40-pound weighted vest, doing push-ups in the rain, running them around my house doing jumping jacks. That was me, man. And it became something I really enjoyed. The worse the weather, the more I wanted to be the guy that, like, you're driving down the road and like, look at that crazy lunatic. He's doing kettlebell swings in his driveway and it's driving rain. I actually really, really like that. It's something I did. It made your mind tougher. You had to plan for it, right? 75 hard is 0 substitutions, 0 compromises, 0 scaling. If you do not follow the directions with proper intent exactly the way they were defined, you will not get the benefit from this program. Actually, the fact that you feel the need to make adjustments or make it your version is only enabling your entitlement and justifying tendencies, and serves as a perfect example of the many reasons you need this mental toughness program. If you come to a fork in the road where you have choice, choose the hardest option. Do you ever see that meme where it's like, choose your hard? Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Paying the mortgage is hard. Foreclosure is hard. Waking up at 4 in the morning to go to work is hard. Living under the bridge is hard. Right? Choose your hard. Take the harder path. Hard now, easy later. Are some of the things I think are true. And I think within our faith we do this a lot. And I'm not going to ask anybody in here their position on every other goofy topic in the world, but I think definitely, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not above assuming I could have it partially incorrect. But I think people make their version of Christianity fit their beliefs, as opposed to making their beliefs Christianity. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself a topic, maybe it's a political one or something where it's like, the church has this position and society has this position. I think we spend too much time, whether because I'm in a sales role or the cancel culture that we're in, I don't usually give what I think is my version of what Christ, when God created us, what it is meant to be. A good example. I believe there are boys and girls. Yep. I think that exists. If you have a different opinion than me, I don't mean to offend you, but there's a lot of people in this small little town that don't believe that. I think a lot of people try to make the Jesus Christ in their mind match with what they're comfortable with. Nobody ever became great for staying comfortable. And I think comfortability has opened the door to a lot of the things that are wrong in our world today. It's uncomfortable, Dodd, to say, hey, I don't think that's right. It might not even be a good idea to tell other people it's right. Dale Carnegie certainly would not suggest that you go around telling people, hey, here's my stance on marriage. Right? I do think that there is benefits to letting go a little bit of what you think you know to be the case and allowing another force to come inside you. I'm reading a book right now written by Michael Todd, and he talks about 51% faith. And a lot of times we only do the things, think about buying a tractor. I just bought a tractor. A lot of people have tractors. And I shopped around. I wanted to be like 99% sure the tractor I was looking at was the right one. 75 hard that you're looking at, I was definitely not 99% sure that it was right for me. But I was probably at least 51%. Faith begins where human rationale ends. And I opened my mind and heart to doing something that I wasn't totally sure about so that I could get to the end of the road and find out something new, right? If you only ever do the things you know the exact outcome of, you're only ever going to realize that. I suggest you abandon that a little bit and try the things that you're only maybe 51% sure it's good for you. I think that God has a plan for you, Jeremiah 29:11, and He will fill in the other 49%. Let Him do it. Don't stop getting in His way. Stop it. I'm not saying to abandon discernment. Again, 51%, right? Like it's probably not a good idea to do everything that your imagination comes up with. But I think I benefited a great deal from letting go of my own apprehensiveness about a program and letting the gap between what I don't know and do know be filled by just the experience of the process. You're not missing out because you have different priorities than everyone else. And I think a lot of what 75 Hard asks you to do is be the odd duck. Again, going to the networking mixer and not being the guy holding a beer. Like, it could be a lot easier to fit in. Instead, you're not missing out on sleep because you didn't plan to go to bed at night because you prioritized working out at 4 a.m. There's a lot that I think, the more I think our world today, the more you don't fit in a lot of ways, I think the better off you are. I think that's the case. 75 Hard 2 45-minute workouts. One of them must be outside. Follow a diet, no alcohol or cheat meals. Drink 1 gallon of water every single day. Read 10 pages of a book. Take a picture of yourself every single day. By now, you probably have formulated your own opinion about what the guy in the camo shirt talking about a 75 Hard program. Likely you have an idea in your head about whether this is a good idea or not. And I would encourage you, every single person in here could do 75 Hard. Every single one. If you think it wouldn't work for you, try it anyway. Michael Todd, again, that 51% certainty. Stop only doing the things you think 99% of the way are right for you. Open yourself up to I'm 51% certain this could work. That's okay. That's enough. Right? God will fill in the blanks on the rest of it. There are 3 other phases beyond the initial 75 Hard. The 75 days consecutively doing this. There are 3 phases. We're approaching 9:30, and so I won't go into all of them. 75 Hard is absolutely free. It costs nothing to do. You could just jot it down on a piece of paper. Did I do my 2 45-minute workouts? And I'm not a technology guy, as TJ and I self-discovered with the lines, but there is a $5 app you can get, and it just has a little tracker. And when you drink the full gallon of water, check. And it'll help keep you on track. It's $5 one time. I think everybody could spend $5 on. If you get to the other end of this, everything, because you become so organized, you actually get a whole lot more done. And it's this weird, it's almost like hard to picture, but like by giving yourself more to do, you actually get a lot of other things done because you become oriented with being organized and having a plan for your day. It's not just Saturday. I got up at 5:30 in the morning and did my routine so I could come to the Prince Street Church and be with you all this morning. It wasn't coincidental. It's planned, and other things will happen. I got into sales, and the guy before me said, Dan, he's like, if you get out of the 500s, you'll be somebody. Right? That billable volume over the course of a fiscal year. If you got out of the 500s, you're somebody. And the year that I gave myself more to, it would be easy to say, like, I got so much to do. I got so many proposals to send, so many emails to catch up with, so many voicemails to reply to. That's a good thing in my business, right? The opposite of that is really bad, right? Nobody's calling. In my business, that's a bad thing. So don't let the fact that your phone's going off the hook intimidate you from being better. I was told that if you ever got out of the fives, you'd be somebody. And last year, the year I did 75 Hard, the full year-long program, I could have spit on 7 figures. It's happening, man. It's the weirdest thing. You give yourself more to do, and you actually get even more than that done in a day's time because you are structured, you're planned. It's not just willy-nilly. You have a plan for your day. 75 Hard, end of the slideshow. So I don't know that maybe made sense for every single person, and maybe some of the things I said rubbed you the wrong way. I just ask for your forgiveness. It was said with absolute intent to be a benefit. Thank you, Dodd, for giving me the opportunity to share something I am passionate about. I'm not currently in the middle of 75 Hard, but the things that I've kept up with, I brought my black jug. This is with me every day. And 2 of these per day, when I'm doing 75 Hard, equals a gallon. And drinking a gallon of water every day is something that's stuck. I'm not currently doing 75 Hard, but I read 10 pages of a book every day. I think that's a good thing. Books weren't a part of my life, and now they are regular. It's very routine, very normal to see me reading. And 3 years ago, that wouldn't have been, 2 years ago, it wouldn't have been the case. These authors all had really good ideas, and they had such good ideas that they put them to print, and in some cases sold millions of copies. Read it. What did they talk about? There's no doubt some of it could be a benefit to you. This one, written by a national hero, U.S. Marine, U.S. Navy SEAL. They go through quite a process. You're telling me I can tap into the knowledge and experience of a United States Navy SEAL, battle tested and buried his buddies and all of that. All I have to do, instead of going through all of that in reality, he was gracious enough to have captured that in print, and I can read about it. Good idea. I think that's great, right? I'd rather not have to go to battle in Iraq to be able to comprehend the lessons that he learned firsthand. Right? You can expand your own self by reading books that other people wrote. That stuck with me. I don't take a picture of myself every day. I don't do 2 workouts every day. But getting up at 4 a.m. And having that time to myself is something I cherish. I get up and I'm going outside, regardless of the weather, and I'm doing a workout. And I like to even come in then and read my 10 pages first thing in the morning, so that by the time I get to the office at 7 o'clock, I've taken an effort. It didn't happen just because it wasn't an accident, right? I intentionally wanted to get my body and mind right for the day ahead. And maybe the 10 pages I read absolutely have no relation to what I experienced that day, but it's amazing how often it does. And you're like, man, I just read about that 5 hours ago. And now I'm on Mrs. Jones's doorstep, and I need to see things through her perspective. That's what Dale Carnegie talks about, seeing things through other people's perspective. And it's uncanny the number of times that the pages I read, and maybe it's just because it's on my mind, I see it that way, or maybe there was a reason I read that set of pages that day, got me ready for whatever I encountered during the day. So. I've got a couple minutes here, Dodd. I'll take any questions. Did I mostly hit a lot of the marks that you wanted me to? All right, at least mostly. So does anybody have any questions? I put some information out about there. Again, this is not my program. It was written by Amy Priscilla. Again, language warning. But if you can read between the lines, and I know you can, there's a lot of benefits to that. And I just can't speak enough about how thankful I am that John Schriever introduced me to the program, and I resisted my own temptation not to do it, because what if I shoot a buck? I might want to drink a beer. I put that aside, right? So anyway, thanks Dan and Dodd for giving me a moment to chat, and I'll take some questions if there are any. Perfect. So you know exactly. I did it exactly. I filled their brains with knowledge. Good.
TJ?
No questions.
Hey.
How many of you
Now the question.
think 75 hard?
It's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah. Yep.
It definitely would take dedication.
It definitely takes dedication, TJ. You're absolutely correct. It definitely would take dedication. Do you think, does anybody want to share whether or not they think they could do it?
Be tough.
Well,
I said it'd be tough.
It's okay. Getting tough is okay.
and the fact that you need to do it inside and outside. I mean, I don't mind running 2-3 hours outside, but that I go to run out and come and run in, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can do either, but I mean, last night I think I ran 11 miles.
Wow.
But then don't tell me to run and come back and how many minutes? 45 minutes in the house. No.
You should have 2 to 3 hours between workouts. So what I would do one first thing in the morning, and then after we put the kids down. Sometimes I would do it through the day. My schedule is usually variable, and I would do a workout if I'm like ahead on appointments, or I'm an hour early for my 2 o'clock. Pull into a park and walk around for 45 minutes, or do push-ups, goofy stuff. Try new things.
Pull-ups,
Pull-ups. Yep, all of the above.
planks.
One of the things that I didn't guess would be a result that was a result was the closeness this brought me to my wife. We had 2 kids, and she felt like she didn't look the way she wanted to after 2 kids, and I am not the idiot that would say, hey. But because there she's seeing I'm working out, now she's motivated. John Shriver, my financial advisor that tipped me off on 75 Hard, we've talked about it to other people. We have text groups. At 4:30 in the morning, I can call someone and they'll pick up their phone and he'll be panting because he's doing a workout. He knows he can come. He's done it. You take a 4:30 a.m. phone call just to hear someone say, I hope your day's going well. Right? So this momentum that's created out of being that dedicated, it's tough. Do hard things. I don't think we do enough hard things. I think that's why we get so wrapped around the axle. I think back in the times when we were like, hey, my goals today are to find food and not be shot by an Indian. You aren't worried about where I go to the bathroom. Right? Everything's perspective. We live in a very comfortable way as people now. And I think we invent problems because of how comfortable we are. This is a positive invention of problems that is tough, that takes dedication. You're absolutely right. TJ's assessment is spot on. And it's worth doing anyway, in spite of the perception of difficulty and toughness. Give yourself good problems. And I think the more people did that, the more we would calm down and get along. And everything would be a lot less complicated. They're putting cat litter boxes in the schools for those who identify as cats. Yeah.
Should you not?
You would have thought, I'm just old enough now that I can say it wasn't that way when I was a kid. Right? I'm 33 years old. But when I was 10 years old, if I would have walked up to my teacher and said, hey, I'm a cat, I am blessed to have had the experience of someone saying, I know you ain't. Right? Maybe I joke and I kid, but I think that's just a little, and it's good we can joke about it. But I think when you look at all of the not so funny realities that come out of that, my wife and I, we're questioning things like where I had always assumed my kids would just be the next Greyhound You think, I was a wrestler, so you daydream about your kid being on the wrestling team or on the baseball team, Dan. Now public school system is something that I'm kind of, I don't think that's for us. At $8,000 a kid or whatever Shalom Christian Academy is, what do you want to spend your money on? I think my wife and I are trying to figure out how we come up with $8,000 in a year's time. Well, we can do it. And they give you a discount on the second kid, so when cash comes up through. We've talked about homeschooling. We've absolutely talked about homeschooling. We're raising chickens. We are raising hogs. A section of our 4-acre lawn is going to be for cattle. We're doing things around the house. Our kids are going to see where things come from, that you can do hard things with your hands, and it's worth doing anyway in spite of the perception of difficulty. Or that there's a really easy other way to do it. The other thing, at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's also really easy just to lay the heck in bed and sleep. That's an option. It's completely an option. It's an okay one. And for most of my life, that was the option I selected. At 4 o'clock in the morning, probably a lot of you did too, to stay in bed. Right? Get up. I'm talking to myself. I get up. I challenge myself in that way. So the connections that I've made spiritually because of either the books I read that are about spirituality or just the, I talk about 75 hard. I did not just do it open and shut first try. So I failed, and on day 55, I forgot to take a picture of myself one day thinking. Can you believe it? Woke up the next day, and I'm like, I didn't take a picture of myself. But for 55 days, I had drank a gallon of water every day, worked out twice a day, 45 minutes, one of them outside, read 10 pages of book, and it all went out the window because I didn't have the discipline to take a silly selfie on day 55. And I think that's a metaphor for God's forgiveness. Because I woke up the next day, it was like, great, day 1, perfect, let's do it. And I think that's how God's, I speak really candidly about all of the things I'm not super proud of in my life, right? And I do that in this setting because I think it's a safe space for me to do that. But the next day when I got off the Coke binge, God accepted me. Like, Derek, I'm a perfect child, and it's okay. Today's a new day, right? 75 hard. You missed your picture today. Phase 1, after 75 hard, you do all of that plus a 5-minute long cold shower, 3 extra tasks, and a 10-minute visualization. I had done that for 21 days and forgot to take a picture of myself. So it's a 30-day version of 75 hard. So that meant I had to do 51 consecutive days of a 5-minute long cold shower. They stink. They're not fun. And to the normal discerning person, you would say, why are you taking a 5-minute cold shower? And I don't mean like, well, the water's just not hot. No, I mean slam it on C and jump in the shower. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah, you can do it. You're not going to tonight. But maybe another day you'll try it. It is a mental toughness thing. You can get through hard things. You can endure pain. What I'd rather do is endure pain than suffer. And there's a whole lot of people that wake up every day. 85% of Americans don't like their job. I refuse to be one. They're okay with not doing the hard things to get out of that job and start a new career. Why? If it ain't right, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it is broke, do fix it. And 75 hard will get your mind thinking about those things. My wife and I were considering moving to Tennessee. I had an amazing job opportunity this past summer to start an office for Bartlett Tree Experts, and that meant moving to Tennessee. And it was on the chopping block. And my wife and I even did a company-sponsored tour of Tennessee. And we lived there, and I really, really wanted to do it. And I remember being in the Airbnb this summer on a July night. And I looked at her, and I'm like, hey, so what do you think? She's like, nope, and I hate our house. Oh. She didn't say it quite that way. I tend to be a little more brash and a little more blunt. But we had a heart-to-heart conversation. It was a big deal. It was a big decision. And so it's like, okay, well, we're not moving to Tennessee, and you don't like where we live. Well, let's get the heck out then. Right? We were on 0.8 of an acre. which is it was a beautiful property. But we loved gardening and raising chickens, and now we can do a whole lot more of that on 11 acres. Right? But it would have been easy for me to get mad and just be like, oh, you should like my idea to move to Tennessee, and you should love our house. Or just be like, hey, you know what? Let's try something new. So
Wow.
anyway, Dan, that's what I think a little bit.
Truly appreciated your time,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna have to read more.
10 pages a day, Dan.
Wow,
Yeah. It's like a day.
I'm still thinking about those 2 45-minute workouts.
And maybe me talking today isn't so that you do it, but maybe there's someone that you know of that you could drop off. Please take that, a little stapled piece of papers. Maybe there's someone you know that can do it. It's not a fitness program, but you will get in shape. It's not a sobriety program, but you will be sober the whole time. It's not an education program, but you'll read the entire time. So anyway, I think it's worth trying, and I appreciate Dan and Dodd giving me a chance to share with you all something I'm passionate about.
You can very, very much tell you're passionate about it. And it came through in your message. Any final questions for Hardball?
Copies of the stapled pages?
Oh, yeah, yep, copies of them, definitely. There's one over here, and, yeah, we could make copies. Do you use email? Yeah, I promise you, I will send you an email. If you don't comment, I promise you I will. Or go to andyfrisella.com, 75 hard, type it into any Google search bar, and it'll come up right away. It's not a secret thing. I don't own it. I didn't invent it, and it's out there.